What is being mature? It means seeing the big picture in every situation. Thus, I make decisions based on my long-term best interest rather than on immediate gratification or immediate avoidance of pain. Of course, sometimes the immediate gratification or immediate avoidance of pain is consistent with my long-term best interest. For example, I wake up with an unfamiliar sharp pain in my right lower abdomen and decide to visit my doctor, which might help relieve my immediate pain and certainly is in my long-term best interest to rule out any serious health problem. But at other times, giving in to immediate gratification or immediate avoidance of pain is not in my long-term best interest. For example, I really want the new iPhone that just came out, so I buy it even though I won't have enough money to pay the rent next week. This is a classic example of immature behavior, which is when I make decisions based on immediate gratification or immediate avoidance of pain, even though it will negatively impact my long-term best interest. Teenagers are notorious for their immaturity, and there's a reason for it. The prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is heavily involved in making mature decisions, does not fully develop until the mid-20s, which is why insurance companies lower rates significantly when a driver turns 25. Addiction is an extreme example of immaturity. The addict will continue using crack even though he knows his probation officer will drug test him and a positive result would send him to prison. Another example of immaturity is a woman who says, "I won't get a mammogram because what if it turns out bad?" Thus she is choosing to decrease her anxiety about the outcome by avoiding a mammogram rather than taking the mature path of facing her fears and being proactive in monitoring her health. Now here's an example of maturity. A man who hates math decides to take a dreaded but required statistics course so he can earn a psychology degree which will help him attain his future goal of becoming a therapist. Another example of maturity is a woman who recently lost her mother and then realizes she's dealing with her pain by drinking too much. So she decides to join a grief support group rather than continuing to self-medicate with alcohol. And now one final example of maturity. A woman in early recovery from heroin addiction realizes she's not fit at this time to properly care for her 6-year-old son, so she overcomes her guilt and gives temporary custody to the father so she can give full attention to getting herself healthy for herself and her son. As you can see, the difference between mature and immature decisions is whether or not one considers long-term consequences. So if you're struggling with a decision where part of your brain is telling you to do one thing and another part is telling you to do another, here's what you can do. Write down each option and list the likely long-term consequence of each. Then choose the option that truly represents your true long-term best interest. Now this might sound like a simple thing to do, but sometimes it can be difficult if a part of your brain tends to deny negative long-term consequences because of a strong emotional need, which is always the case with addiction-like behaviors. So you must try to be honest with yourself, or you can ask a trusted friend to help you see the bigger picture. However, if you have a pattern of making bad decisions, then online therapy can help. If you'd like to learn more about me and the services I provide, then go to my website, serenityonlinetherapy.com. If you found this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button. And if you want to hear more from me, then subscribe to my channel, Counselor Carl. I will be publishing a new video every other weekend. And finally, keep paying attention to your life. Until next time.